Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. This is Coach Young. Today's date is December the 11th. In today's podcast, we get into 5 topics. Number 1, we recap Saturday night's finals of the in-season tournament between the Pacers and the Lakers. 2, with the Lakers winning the in-season tournament, does that springboard them into contention for a title? 3, we'll look at the 3 young teams that made it to the knockout round. Which team out of the Pacers, Kings, and Pelicans do I think is least likely to duplicate this success for the remainder of the season? 4, we'll look into the rookie race, how the rookies are shaping up and how they're playing. And lastly, we will talk about should the Chicago Bulls blow it up. Once again, this is the Betting Above the Rim podcast for December 11th, and let's get started with the in-season tournament. You guys know how I feel about it. I think it's been a success. People can talk about the tweaks that need to be done by Adam Silver. But one thing they got right, and they were hoping for, is that LeBron James got to the finals. And not only did he get to the finals, LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers win the first annual in-season tournament with a 123-109 win over Indiana. And when you look at this game, you have to look at, honestly, the play of the center position. When I went on last weekend on Saturday night, right before tip-off, went on with my friend Tom Byrne, who does a great job at Mad Dog Sports Tonight. You can find him on SiriusXM Channel 82. I went on with Tom right before tip-off, and I told him that I thought that Halliburton and LeBron were going to cancel each other out. And they pretty much did so. LeBron, 24, 11, and 4. Halliburton, 20, 11 assists. So they canceled each other out. To me, this game was going to be decided at the 5 spot. It was the next guy that was going to decide what happens. Well, Miles Turner did not bring it. 3 for 11 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3. 10 points, 7 rebounds, and he fouled out in only 25 minutes of play. Meanwhile, you look to Anthony Davis. And what did he give you? One of the best performances of his NBA career. 41 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks as he played outstanding ball. But you also have to look at Austin Reeves, who has been coming off the bench as of late. 9 of 15 from the floor, 12 free throws, uber aggressive with 28 points. So when you look at it, you know, people can say what they want about the tournament, but when the Lakers got to Vegas, they had to be considered to be the favorite, even though they weren't. And I kind of talked about it because I talked about this being a legacy thing for LeBron, right? LeBron is a big historian of the game. And he knows where he sits firmly on the Mount Rushmore of basketball. But to him to win the first in-season tournament was a feather in his cap. And it's something that, let's be honest, folks, it was perfect for the NBA. Why? LeBron is your biggest salesman. Arguably the greatest player of all time. We've talked about the fact that he wants to own an NBA team. The game was in Vegas. And it was full of Lakers supporters. So the NBA on Saturday night got what they wanted, which is LeBron James, prime time, Sin City, in-season tournament, but he couldn't do it without that guy right there, Anthony Davis, who was absolutely sensational. And we'll get into the Lakers more in a second. But for Indiana, I think this was a very good moment for them. They did not play particularly well early in the first half. They tried to make runs in the game. You know, they kind of changed the way they played a little bit. They played the game a little bit more, less of a tempo. But to me, you know, this is more about the Lakers. The Pacers are going to be there, folks, and we'll talk a little bit about them in a little bit when I get into the 3 teams that made it to the knockout round between the Pacers, the Kings, and the Pelicans, which team I think cannot duplicate their success that they've had so far this year. So let's talk about the Lakers, right? Because the thought process now is, does the Lakers winning the in-season tournament springboard them to a title contender? And the big question to me is, which Anthony Davis are you going to get? Because Anthony Davis has been a phenomenal player in this league. I would argue that Anthony Davis, talent-wise, top 20 all time. Talent-wise, 7 foot, shoot the three, run the ball, run the floor, handle the ball, block shots, rebounds. He does it all. But he doesn't do it consistently enough. And if you look at his performance last year in the Western Conference Finals against Denver, right? If you really want to just sit back and really look at what he did, right? You look at his stats. He played 40 minutes of every game, right? Sure, he gave you a 40-point game in game number 1, but then he followed it up with a 4 for 15 in game number 2 with 18 points. What did he do game 3? Fantastic. 28 points, 18 rebounds, 42 minutes. Fantastic in a 119-108 loss. And then although he gave you 21 points, he only took 15 shots in game number 4. And you can go up and down the line of looking at some of Anthony Davis's play over his course of career, and he's so scintillating with his talent. And it's really a shame that I am pinning the Lakers' hopes of winning a title on Anthony Davis. But folks, I don't have a choice. Even though LeBron James is playing some of his, it's crazy to say he's at 38, the best basketball of his career, I don't know if LeBron can carry you to 16 wins like he did, let's say, when he won his championship in Cleveland. He can't get you 16 wins by himself. He's just not built that way. He needs help. He needs help. And he needs a situation, folks, where he can be Batman, but also he can be Robin. And when the Lakers traded for Anthony Davis, they thought they were getting the Robin that could become Batman. I mean, it's even gone to say that LeBron went on record early in the year, or actually before the season, said this is Anthony Davis's team. He gave him the keys to the car and said, here, it's yours. Take the team. I can't do it every night. And you thought you had a minutes restriction for LeBron, right? People were talking about it early on in the season. Oh, you know what? They're going to save LeBron. They're going to save LeBron. They're going to save LeBron. They have to do this, right? First game of the year, 29 minutes. There we go. They're going to save him, right? And if you go down the line, folks, he has played the rest of the season, he has played 4 games under 30 minutes so far. You know what they are? A 133-89 win over New Orleans. A 131-99 win over Utah. A 137-104 win over Memphis. And then opening night. Sorry, there was another one when they lost by 30 to Houston. So LeBron's giving you big minutes. He's doing it. And if you really look at his stats over his career, you know, LeBron is giving you right now, 33.4 minutes per game. You're saying to yourself, well, you know, that's not a ton for LeBron. You're right. But still, this is something that we have to watch for. So if the Lakers are going to win a championship, this is going to be mostly on the play of Anthony Davis. But there's other things we have to look at, folks. Can D'Angelo Russell be a consistent three-point shooter? Right now, D'Lo's shooting it at 40.5%. Rui Hachimura for a full year. Can he do what he's been doing this year? Cam Reddish, who's been I guess you would call it a reclamation project. LeBron's wanted him for years on his team, giving you 7.1. They got to get Gabe Vincent healthy, and we got to get Jared Vanderbilt going. Can the Lakers compete for a championship? Absolutely. But LeBron James, as great as he is, at 38 years old, he's going to need those three guys, Reeves, Russell, and most importantly, Anthony Davis, to start to shoulder more of the offensive load, because I don't know if LeBron is going to make it all the way through. So now let's move on to teams that have surprised in the in-season tournament. And let's look at three teams specifically that made it to the knockout round of the tournament in New Orleans, in Sacramento, and in Indiana. So when you look at these teams, I said early on, I've been big on all three of them. Not as much Sacramento, but I was really big on Indiana preseason, and I was big on, obviously, the Pelicans before the season. So when you look at their standings, right, Indiana's right now 5th in the Eastern Conference at 12-8. You look at the Western Conference, and the Pelicans are right now 12-11 in 10th. Sacramento, 12-8 in 6th. So where am I going with this, right? So to me, when you look at these teams, you immediately got to throw out the fact that I think that Sacramento is for real. I think that there is a chemistry that Mike Brown has instilled in them. They run that split screen offense. If you guys don't know what split screen offense is you have an action where there's a screen and one person cuts to the basket, one person cuts up top. That's a lot of that Golden State Warriors action that we've seen that Mike Brown took from him when he left the sidelines of Golden State to go across the bay to Sacramento. And you got to look at the reason why I believe in them is the play, particularly of their top two players, and De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis, who have been absolutely fantastic. Malik Monk off the bench. Murray's been better. Hoyer's a shooter. You got Harrison Barnes. So you got guys there. So I am a believer in this team, and I think out of the three teams, they are, to me, the safest team that I think is going to duplicate success or replicate it from the season tournament, because they, with Mike Brown as the coach, have done a great job this year. And I think after losing Game 7 at home to Golden State, I think they're going to find their way into the top 6 in a loaded Western Conference. So now we're down to the Pelicans or the Pacers. And folks, I'm going to be honest with you. And I was thinking about this probably all week, and I wanted to talk about it after the in-season tournament. I was going to say last week, Pacers. If there's a team that's going to fold, it's going to be the Pacers. It's going to be the Pacers, right? But then they went and beat Boston, right? Then they went and beat Milwaukee. And I saw a little bit more of a commitment to defense from them than I saw earlier. I think you can make a case that Tyrese Halliburton is a top 12 player in the NBA. I don't think he's top 10 yet, because I think I need to see more of the defensive side of the ball out of Tyrese Halliburton. Miles Turner, although he did not play well in the finals, has had a very good year. Stretch 5, one of the best rim protectors in the league. Someone that, let's be honest, folks, has not played a ton of basketball over the years because he's been injured. Yeah, look at Tyrese Halliburton, folks. I'm sorry, Miles Turner only played 62 games last year. You know, he's had several years, had 65 games in 17, 18. You know, so this is a guy that does get injured, but he got his money, and he's comfortable, and he loves it there. The play of Obi Toppin, which has been a great trade for them. Benedict Mathurin, Buddy Hield, who I thought were going to get traded, but he serves a niche on this team. So if I told you it's the Kings are going to be really good, and I think they're going to replicate this success. If I told you that Indiana is going to be where they are, partially because of the fact that the Eastern Conference isn't as loaded as the West, then my team is the Pelicans. And I'm a big fan of this team. But there's a problem, folks. There's a problem. And it's a weight problem. I'm not going to go into this Stephen A. Smith diatribe about Zion's weight and the food and the chefs and all that. It's not my business. But if as a coach, I have concerns with Zion. I have concerns with his weight. Because is his weight going to allow him to hold up for an entire season? That's got to be a thought and a concern out of everybody down there in New Orleans. Can Zion keep himself in shape or get himself in shape? And that's the issue I have, folks, is he should have came into training camp in shape. And to me, as the season is going along, I don't think Zion's getting better with shape. I think he's getting worse. And that is a real concern, because usually during the season you have to lift weights to maintain your weight because you lose strength. Zion's putting on weight, and it's not a good look. Well, why else? Well, the fact that C.J. McCollum's only played 10 games this year. He had the lung injury. C.J. McCollum, who's been absolutely fantastic over the course of his career, has had years where he's played as few as 26 games. He's gotten hurt. And you also could look at Brandon Ingram, someone else that has missed time, not so much this year, only missed, I think, 4 or so games, but B.I. has missed games over his career. Only 45 games last year, 55 the year before. So you have to have concerns about, can this team stay healthy? Trey Murphy III just came back from knee surgery. Alvarado's missed time. And the fact that the Western Conference is absolutely loaded from top to bottom, there could be a scenario, folks. There could be a scenario. As good as I think the Pelicans are, as good as I think they are, there's a chance that they don't make it. I mean, let's think about this, folks. They're in the 10th spot at 12 and 11. Who's behind them by a game and a half? Golden State. You know, I think the Warriors at some point are going to have to start playing better. You could go down the line. I know they're 6 and 15, but what happens when Ja comes back, you know, in the next week and a half for Memphis? They can see Adams back. Do they start to take off? And there's always a concern with B.I. and Zion is at some point, do you make a trade and move one of them? And I think that could be a possibility, because to me, if there's a guy I move out of that team, I move Brandon Ingram. I would love to see Trey Murphy III as that 3-and-D guy with Zion, if he's in shape, with Jonas Valanciunas in the backcourt, in the front court. So that's the other nugget is, if they're not playing great, do they break up that team, hope that they get Zion engaged in shape, or move Zion, or do they move Brandon Ingram and slide Trey Murphy III into a starting spot? Let's move on to the rookies. And when Wemby came out, I should say, it was already going to be a dynamic class because we had this generational I don't even want to call it a generational talent because we just haven't seen anything like Victor Wembenyama before. So when he came out, you looked at him, you looked at Scoot Henderson, and then you thought there was a major drop-off. But I'll tell you this, folks. This rookie class has showed more depth, I would say, than you would have thought. Let's begin at the top with Victor Wembenyama, who has had himself an up and down year for a team in San Antonio that is just god-awful. Big Vic's giving you 19, 10.2, 2.7 blocks, 43% from the floor. Now, the concern with Vic is he's shooting 25.5% from three. But he's starting to get it. And you've seen glimpses of Wembenyama have games where you just drop your jaw and you're in awe of what he did, including that unbelievable 38-10 performance at Phoenix to begin the month of November. But let's go to more of the depth of it. Let's go to the guy right now that's the leader in the clubhouse to be Rookie of the Year. But he's not a rookie. But he is, because he didn't play last year. And that's Chet Holmgren. Chet has been part of, if you're going to say SGA is reason number one, Chet has been the number two reason by, I would say, you would call it the emergence of a team like Oklahoma City. And Chet is giving you 17.1 points per game, 7.8 rebounds, 2.4 blocks per game, shooting it at 52% and roughly 37% from three. He's been dynamic. He's been everything that they thought they were going to get. And I think that this is a team that's going to be around for a long time to come. And Chet, and do know this, folks, there's been 3 times, I do believe, when the Rookie of the Year has gone to someone that was drafted 2 years, right? In their second year, but Rookie of the Year ballot. I know one was Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Blake Griffin. Those are the 3 cases of which guys have won Rookie of the Year, technically in their second year, but their rookie year in regards to playing time. But there's other guys that we need to talk about really quickly. Scoot, we'll get to Scoot down the road in another podcast because I want to get him more time. Brandon Miller has shown his ability to be a sharpshooter for a team like Charlotte, giving you about 14, 15 points per game. Jordan Hawkins is giving you 12.5 for New Orleans, in which he went into the starting lineup when CJ McCollum is out. Jaime Hawkins, gee whiz, 12.2 points a game. I think he's third right now in the battle for rookie of the year. Jaime Hawkins has been absolutely fantastic. And it just goes to that Heat culture when I loved Hawkins in college at UCLA, but I didn't know if he was enough of an athlete. And then it's like, when guys go to Miami, you just know it's going to work. You just see it, right? So when Jaime Hawkins went to Miami, if it would have been any other team, you'd have said, oh, that's a reach. You're going to pay for Spo? He drafted by Riley, you're like, yeah, Hawkins is going to be a good pro. And he's been a darn good one. Couple of more that we want to briefly talk about. Keontae George, who I loved out of Baylor, as a pure scoring guard, is giving you about 10.5 points per game, getting more playing time with Utah, so start looking at his player props in regards to scoring. Asor Thompson has shown an ability to be maybe the best defender in the class. 10.8 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 1.3 blocks. He's got to get his field goal shooting percentage up. And Derek Lively is giving you about 9 and 8 for the Dallas Mavericks. So that shows the depth of this class. We haven't talked about Amen Thompson, who's kind of stuck, and Cam Whitmore. Those guys are stuck and not getting the minutes. Bilal Coulibaly is getting you a little bit of minutes here with Washington. There's been others, Jarris Walker, because of the play of Olivier Toppin, isn't getting the time, but these guys are going to develop. So while we talked about this being a Big Two class, this rookie class has been better than expected. Let's end with the Chicago Bulls. Once a proud franchise, you think about the 6 championships that Jordan led them to in the 90s. Well, folks, these are not those Chicago Bulls. And there is trouble in Chicago, folks. And there is deep trouble because I've always said the biggest problem in the NBA is you're either doing one or two things. You're winning or you're rebuilding. And there's nothing worse than being stuck in the middle. Here's why. 2 years ago, folks, Chicago Bulls had was playing some of the best basketball in the NBA. But it was fool's gold. It was fool's gold because they weren't beating anybody that was any good. Zion gets hurt with the knee. Shout out to LeVar Ball and the Big Baller brand. Rumors is that your sneakers are the reason that did this. Terrible if it was. Because Lonzo was becoming a really dynamic player in the NBA. So Lonzo gets hurt. They flame out in the playoffs. They come back last year. Don't play well. And it was obvious to everyone from last year that they had to break this team up. So what do? They keep everybody. And they re-sign Nikola Vucevic. So now we're stuck. Because we got big-time contracts, guys making a lot of money, for a team that's sitting at 9-14 in the Eastern Conference. What are you going to do, Chicago? I will be the GM for you. You blow the damn thing up. And you blow it up now. Why? Because you actually may have guys that are tradable assets. DeMar DeRozan, some team will take a look at him. Zach LaVine, someone will take a look at him. Folks, that's the biggest reason why it doesn't work is those two can't play together. It was never going to work. They both need the ball in their hands too much. They're ISO scorers. You need to have a scorer and then a shooter to go with them. And that's been a problem for the Chicago Bulls. Vucevic doesn't play enough defense for me. Vucevic's lines are so tantalizing because he gets you 16 points, he gets you 10.3, rebounds per game. It's a double-double machine every night. He just doesn't do it for me on the defensive end of the floor. He's a 7-foot center and he gets you 0.7 blocks per game. It's not good. Patrick Williams has never developed into the player that he thinks he is. He thinks he's a Patrick Williams thinks he's a $25 million a year player. On what earth is he on? $25 million a year for a guy that gets you 8 points a game. Kobe White's been better, 15.6. Falling in the starting lineup. But there is a guy that if I'm a contender, I'm calling right now to go get, and his name is Alex Caruso. 9.5, 2.3 assists, 3.4 rebounds. You're like, what? Out of all the guys, you take Caruso? Yeah, well, he's also 46% from three. Efficient. and defends and knows his role, plays it as well as anybody on that team. So Chicago should blow it up. But if there's a guy that I'm calling for first, I think the guy that moves the needle more than anybody else to get not so much return, but for another team to make a run at the playoffs, if I'm a GM, I go get Alex Caruso. And honestly, I try to trade either DeRozan or LaVine, and I tell Billy Donovan, thank you for your service, but we have to blow this thing up, and we have to start over. Let's rebuild with a younger coach. This has been the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Once again, today's date is December the 11th. For all your information, I don't even know why I keep saying it, but I'll say it to you again. Download that SportsGrid app. Available on iOS and Android. Everything you need, pregame, in-game, post-game, plays, props, predictions from the best analysts in the business, from Scotty Farrell. Thank you, God. Our guy Scotty's back. Gabe Morency, Ben Stevens, Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, Joe Lisi, Taylor Mathis, Joe Madden, Cam Stewart, Dave Sherapan, Matt Perrault, Scott Wetzel, even Coach Young. The best in the business. This needs to be in your rotation of what you need to look on every single day to help you with your sports gambling information. Next podcast will air or drop on December the 14th. We'll play it or record it on the 13th. Until then, thanks for listening to the podcast. This has been Coach Young. Have a great day. And remember, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Good night.